This is the Melbourne Design Awards. I'm very pleased to be joined by two of the gentlemen from Unispace. I've got Dean and Simon. Welcome to you.
Thank you very much.
So tell me, what is Unispace? What have you done here?
So the project for Unispace was a tough one. We were our own client. So as anyone's been through this process before, you've got to really think about what it is that you want to come, the project outcomes and the process you need to go through. So we really wanted to demonstrate what it was that we did and how that we worked. And that was a big part of the project. So we started from the very beginning, which was the strategy, worked all the way through the design process, and as a part of our offering, we deliver the project as well.
And what did you know that you needed? It is your own space, so there are certain requirements that you can ask another client, I suppose, if you're working with someone else, what they require. But when you're talking about yourselves, how do you nut those things out?
Well, it took probably longer than it... Well, no, it should take a long period of time, and it did take a long period of time to really understand what the requirements were. We're a 5-year-old startup, and so we had quite big plans for the business and the office space to suit that. We're also in a process of rebranding, which meant that we needed to also think about what the style of the space was going to be, along with what it needed to do functionally. So that was so we got our strategy people in. We had a series of about 5 or 6 workshops. We went through our own change management process as well, and before we even started with a pen and paper on the trace. So it was a long period,
which is a good thing, I suppose. So what did you do, Dean? Talk me through some of the resolutions.
Look, I think for us it was very much about an opportunity to transform a culture. So we used this space to help us, take us on a journey to be able to move into a future that was going to represent, innovation and thinking differently, and certainly a space that made us proud, and very much a creative studio that allowed us to demonstrate what we do.
So as a startup, the space itself, what then is it like to walk through, to work in, to inhabit? What makes it different as a space?
Yeah, look, for us it was very much a blend of different atmospheres, experiences. We work in the world of workplace. We work with, big global corporates. So we wanted the space to represent diversity, very much an element of uniqueness and difference. So when you do walk through the space, you have an opportunity to experience an element of executive. Then there was an aspect of hospitality. And then as you walk through into the creative environment, it was very honest and raw and rich. Very much allowing people to be empowered and to sort of drive their own process. So it was, very much this sort of exploratory environment.
And how has it transformed it for those that are working there, even if it's just for you? I know anecdotally there may be people talking about it, but what are some of those stories?
We like to practice what we preach. So we work with clients and customers that are looking for new, agile ways of working. So as a part of our process, we go through and study how ready we are to be working in a new way. So we're non-assigned desks, we have lockers, we come in and we work out what we need to do during the day, and we find a space or several spaces to be able to do that. So the space is very fluid, the teams are very fluid, the way that we think, our technology backs that up. We're supported by the right types of laptops and wireless connectivity and all that sort of goodies that mean that you can be productive even when you are walking around or working in different spaces, quiet spaces, loud spaces, innovation spaces and client spaces, which Dean was talking about as well. But a big part of what we do is when you're building a team, we need to make sure we're getting the culture right. So a big part of the space has been dedicated to the cafe and that social area. So we have lunch together, we make sure we come together at all the opportunities we possibly can, and that's really started to bring the team together. New people, when they start, are instantly drawn, and we almost break bread every day to get the team together.
Okay, so it's like the water cooler sort of photocopier conversation, but happening in a much more cohesive, fun and possibly better coffee environment.
And with great whiteboards and pin space and technology around it. So it's the ability to be able to capture that great idea immediately rather than trying to put it in a diary to have an innovation meeting in a couple of weeks.
So it's fascinating because it is this new space. It's the future as we see it now, Unispace of the workplace. But one of those things, and you've mentioned that word already, being agile. So how can this space evolve over time?
Well, we're sitting at about, we've designed the space for 30 people. We're sitting at about 23 people at the moment. Very quickly we'll get to the 30, and that's where the space really starts to come into its own. So with the ability of not only a desk, we can go into more of an aggressive desk sharing ratio, which means that you are actively moving around the space more. Not because you have to, because you want to. So we've got, there's about 8 different types of spaces that we can use within the place, and that means that we're actively pulling our teams together and pulling them apart very quickly as well. So
it's working well.
It works
Where
well.
do you gravitate to? I know that everybody's meant to go from one place to another, but you know how you get to a point where you go, no, that's my favourite spot.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. But look, the design methodology was around, as Simon mentioned, being very, very fluid. So the space itself has a more of an infinity type sort of circulation associated to it. So from my perspective, I'm quite mobile. So there's not one space I gravitate to. I move quite fluidly. So whether that's working in the cafe area or having a meeting in the boardroom itself, or just walking around the visual environment spaces, or the lab space at the back, which is sort of designed to very much sort of drive this creation of original. So for me, it's there is no gravitating area. It's very mobile, and that very much sort of drives that agile opportunity.
And materials that you've chosen in order to create a space that is warm, that is welcoming, that allows that sort of movement through the infinity, I guess?
Yeah, and look, it is a space that represents Unispace, so it has an element of brand and stamp, but it also has this aspect of being quite local and very much sort of representing Melbourne. So when we talk about Melbourne as a city, it's a contemporary city, it's progressive, it's edgy, it's raw, and it's honest. So this space certainly represents that. It pops, so there's elements that people leave remembering, one of them being the ceiling, which probably for me is one of the showstoppers, and probably the last thing you talk about when you're designing a space is the ceiling, but this is probably one of the major elements that when people leave, that's probably the first thing or the last thing they talk about.
So they look up, they don't look down.
Yeah.
And look, when we started to design a space, we tell all of our design by Pinterest absolutely annoys me. You know, the first thing a young designer is like, well, here's some images. Like, no, start with an original idea that matches the brief. Then if you want some reference later, go to Pinterest. So we were sick of looking at all the images lately, and anything that comes out of Melbourne, it's polished concrete floors, take the ceiling out, spray it black. And look, every design award, there's always someone up there collecting a trophy with exactly that look. So we said, that's the antithesis of what we want.
Disrupt it.
We are actually going to craft something that's unique and is a part of the Unispace brand as it evolves as well. So we started to think about all the details. Tactile materials, the timber's very important, blending with the stainless steel mesh, the terrazzo floors. So we try to keep the palette very simple, but it's rich and textural as well.
Sounds good. So when can I come and work there when I'm in Melbourne?
Anytime you like.
Excellent.
Anytime you
This is
like.
what I want to hear.
Plenty of desk.
Well, Dean and Simon from Unispace, thank you so much and congratulations.
Thank you very much.